On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, we dig into a great philosophical conundrum facing your Toronto Raptors as currently built. If everyone's a shooting guard, is anybody a shooting guard?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, July the 2nd, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the Hell website at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Over 300 sickos just like you who love the podcast, who love to grill me about my objectively correct takes. It's all in there. Come be part of our listener family over on the Discord. We'd love to see you in there. Lots of new faces lately and some returning old friends who decided, screw limiting screen time. I'm in the Discord again. I love those people very, very much. Of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend on the audio side of things. Much appreciated. You can also go to YouTube and subscribe to the video version of the show so you can look at my mug every day. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, get a heads up via push notification every single time the show is about to premiere or go live. Maybe we'll go live when Bruce Brown gets traded. Never. It's all over there on YouTube for you. Go support it. We'd love to see you there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. The sports stop sportsing like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is offering all customers a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And we will get started here by bringing in one of my favorite guests, a pal of mine from the CEBL. He writes for Forbes. He does stuff all over the place. It is Es Baraheni. S, how's it going, buddy? Are you ready to talk about some shooting guards?
Yeah, I'm excited. We had this debate on the Hell app a little bit. You know, we were talking, we were chatting away, and so we decided let's just bring it on podcast format. Why not?
Yeah, so basically the conceit for today's podcast, look, later on there will be some Jonathan Mogbo propaganda sprinkled in, some Mogbo-ganda.
Nice.
You, of course, are a foremost driver of the hype train alongside me. We're going to talk about that, but the bulk of today's episode is going to be parsing through the Raptors roster, which now, after the signing of Garrett Temple, has 15 guaranteed deals. There's also the non-guaranteed deal for Javon Freeman-Liberty, who fits into this conversation nicely as well. We're going to run through the roster and ask a simple question. Is this guy or is he not a shooting guard? And I think the answers may trouble you. So we're going to run through the whole roster, dig into that, and then talk a little bit about roster imbalance before we get to our Lord and Savior, Jonathan Mogbo. Let's start off here, S. We're just going to go through the roster. Some guys will quickly move through, and some other guys we will sit on and probably debate a little bit. But let's start with one, Scottie Barnes, the foundational player of this team. Is he a shooting guard? What say you?
I think it's the only position he isn't. Really, if we're going based on whatever it is, it's pretty much the only position he just does not fit into. He could be a small ball 5. He likes to be called a point guard. He's usually a 3 or a 4. Definitely not a shooting guard.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Score 1 in the tally for no. Is he a shooting guard? So right now, the Raptors roster, it's exactly what you want. 1 non-shooting guard and 0 shooting guards. That's good balance. We're almost there. All right, let's go to another core piece recently locked up by the Toronto Raptors, Immanuel Quickley. He, of course, on the new 5-year, $175 million deal. Yeah. Is he a shooting guard, S?
That's a tough one. This is a tougher question. This is like, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, he likes to be a shooting guard. And then on Wednesdays and on Fridays and some other Sundays, he's a point guard. So I don't know. I would love for you to chime in and see what you think on this. Cause like he has shooting guard tendencies in terms of being an off ball player, great catch and shoot shooter, all that type of stuff. But then also they want him to grow in the point guard realm as a playmaker, pick and roll, all that type of stuff that you need from a point guard. So I'm kind of split on this. I feel like, yes, he is a shooting guard, but also no, he isn't a shooting guard,
Yeah, I think in spirit, Emmanuel Quickley on the Toronto Raptors is not a shooting guard. I think he's
Fair.
very clearly going to be cast as the point guard. But I do think in all of the debate about is he overpaid? Was this a gross overpayment by the Raptors? Did they keep on just taking care of their guys too much? They're disgusting, these guys who care. In all of that conversation, I do think something that's being a little bit lost in the value proposition that is Emmanuel Quickley is that he doesn't just have to be a lead on ball guard to provide value to the Toronto Raptors, right? This is a team that runs a lot of stuff with their bigs, Kelly Olynyk, Jakob Poeltl. They have the ball a lot from the elbows. They pick out guys. They pass a bunch. We know Scottie Barnes is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. Emmanuel Quickley, yes, is the lead guard for this team. Yes, he is a point guard in spirit, but I do think that the stuff that he does as a shooting guard, flying around screens, using his above the break gravity to warp the defense, the stuff he does working in concert with Scottie and or Jakob Poeltl, all that stuff is kind of shooting guard adjacent. And so I'll go like he's 0.25 of a shooting guard. And I think that's a nice thing. It's a nice little wrinkle to have in his game. It's not just that he's not DeJounte Murray, right? He's not DeMar DeRozan, where his value completely falls off if he's away from the ball. In fact, he offers a ton of value off the ball. And I think that, you know, maybe we're getting into more of a conversation about his contract than his actual positional status. But I do think that's maybe a thing that's being slept on a little bit. It's not just if he's on the ball, he's giving value. He can do stuff away from the ball as well.
Yeah, I think that's part of the value proposition that's similar to Fred. Like, I mean, Fred, you know, hey, part of the reason Fred kind of made sense for the team was because he could be off ball next to Siakam and Scottie. He could be on ball making plays with Jakob and whatnot. And so that's sort of the value proposition there. And then on top of that, I think the question whether he will actually will get shooting guard reps is the defensive side of things. It's if he can hold his own on the defensive end, if he can guard up a little bit, if he, you know, all those type of things that you need on the defensive end from your shooting guard, quote unquote. Yeah, that will be part of it. But yeah, I like 0.25. Let's do it. Roll with it.
Perfect. We're going to have some real crooked numbers by the end of this. Let's get to, well, we can quickly rattle through these two guys. I think you mentioned Scottie Barnes, decidedly not a shooting guard. These guys also, I don't think, fall into the category. Jakob Poeltl, Kelly Olynyk, any shooting guard in either of these guys whatsoever?
I do not think so. No, definitely not.
All right, so now we're 3 non-shooting guards. That's looking all right. That roster is coming together. All right, let's get to RJ Barrett. I'm curious to hear what you think about RJ Barrett. I have said on this show a bunch that I think ideally long-term vision for this team, he is your starting 2 guard, and you find someone with some beef, some length, some defensive chops, which RJ Barrett decidedly did not show last year as a Toronto Raptor. For all the good on the offensive end, the defense was a struggle. He's 6'6", which is fine, but I think as the league skews bigger, you're going to want to have a little bit more length to your lineups. And ideally, to me, this is why I'm in on a guy like Cam Johnson, just to give some functional size at the 3, to push Barrett up the positional spectrum a little bit, push Scottie Barnes to the power forward spot, which I think is where he's best, especially on defense. And so I classify Barrett as a shooting guard. I'm curious where you come down with this as well.
He's a bit of a tweener, and I'll give you a story. I remember trying out for my high school basketball team in grade 9 and making it all the way to the end cuts. And, you know, the coach essentially told me, he's like, you know what? Have you ever heard of Joey Graham? I'm like, yes, of course I've heard of Joey Graham. He's like, you kind of remind me of Joey Graham in the sense. It was actually, it made sense. It made me feel good about myself too. He was like, look, you have the like width and strength to kind of sort of guard up, but you are also a little bit too slow to be able to guard the point guard. So you're a tweener. We don't know where to put you. I'm going to put you on the team. We're going to work on it, but I don't know where to put you, is what he would basically say. And I think this applies to RJ Barrett in the sense that, like, you could have the vision for him being a shooting guard, and me on this other side, I think his best skill sets offensively are as this big bruising power forward type, to be like, hey, I am barreling to the rim all the time. I'm going to be in the dunker spot waiting for an opening. I think the catch and shoot stuff is real, especially from the corners. And so how he builds out his game offensively, I think, is more of a 4. But in terms of the defensive side of things, I could see where you're coming from the shooting guard. So can we do 0.5 for RJ Barrett? Is that a fair estimate for shooting guard?
I'm going to make the math on my end even more complex. I'm going to say, as the tyrant of this podcast, 0.6. He is 0.6 shooting guard.
Okay. Right.
0.2 small forward, 0.2 power forward. So we're at 0.85 shooting guards on the team as it stands right now.
All right. Okay.
All right. Let's quickly run through Grady Dick. I think maybe there is the least debate about this one. Grady Dick's a shooting guard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Look, I mean, maybe eventually he gets into being a 3 just because he is tall, like 6'9", being able to do his thing. But yeah, I think for the most part, he's a 2. Yeah.
He plays like a 2. If you're looking at the archetype, he's going to be in the NBA long term. And look, all of this is with the caveat that positions are mush and they're all the lines are blurred in the modern NBA, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're just thinking like traditional player archetypes, Grady Dick fits into that sort of Danny Green, Klay Thompson, not to say he's either of those guys, but that sort of role on offense, I think that qualifies as shooting guard stuff. And so I'm going to say full on, he's 1.0 shooting guards, which brings us through one segment to 1.85 shooting guards to 3 non-shooting guards. Wow. Non-shooting guards really in the lead. We're going to come back on the other side, probably with our biggest and what will be our most heated debate on this very topic, Davion Mitchell, coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And look, maybe the NBA playoffs have wound down and the Stanley Cup finals are over, but that does not mean there's not a ton of stuff going on in sports for you to go and peruse and throw some money down on if that is your thing. FanDuel has things on deck for you all summer long. And even as the sports are maybe not as prevalent as you're used to, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime if you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. Talking about summer sports, the Copa America is going on, and Canada takes on Venezuela on Friday night in the knockout rounds in the quarterfinals. It's very exciting. Does the American team miss the group? They lost in the group stage. It's very, very funny. And right now, Canada slight underdogs against Venezuela. Maybe you go throw a little money down on them, or you do the happiness hedge and you bet on Venezuela to win. So even if they do win, you get some money out of the deal, and it's not so bad that Canada is going home in the quarters. Either way, go to FanDuel right now. Check it all out. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and of the Locked On Podcast Network. Back at it here with Es Baraheni before we dive into more shooting guard or not shooting guard philosophical talk. Just a reminder, Locked On Sports Today 24/7 is your all-day streaming channel with Locked On shows covering the biggest stories in sports from the national and local angles all the live long day. You want to put it on and not do work all day? You can do that. We're here to help you procrastinate your job. Go check out Locked On Sports Today 24/7. All right. S, the big one. The reason we're talking today, Davion Mitchell, one of the new additions for the Toronto Raptors, arguably the highest profile addition for the Toronto Raptors this summer. We'll see if they trade Bruce Brown, who we'll talk about shortly here as well. The reason I wanted to get this podcast done now is, hey, things could change. The roster is set up that it's begging for some rebalancing. We'll get into that a little bit. But when it comes to Davion Mitchell, he, to me, has been sort of grossly miscast to me by a lot of members of the fan base, saying he is the backup point guard now. And I just do not see it, man. I don't think Davion Mitchell is a point guard. I think maybe there was this sort of vision of him as a point guard when he came into the league, but I think his performance in that role suggests that that is not the job for him at this level. I'm curious what you think. S, is Davion Mitchell a shooting guard or a point guard? What you got here?
I think similar, well, in very two different ways than Emmanuel Quickly. He is probably more of a combo guard, just because I tend to disagree with the fact that like he's been miscast, because I think coming into the league, he had point guard qualities, whether it be the playmaking. I actually think he's still an above average playmaker. Like, yes, the shooting is a huge factor for him to be able to make plays for others. And I'm sure that leans into your argument. But at the same time, I think one of his positive traits as a player, and for what it's worth, this is a guy who has dwindled, like had his minutes dwindled and cut pretty much every single season of his career until now. So like they are still trying to figure out where he fit in Sacramento. And where he fits in Toronto is as that backup point guard, because that's what they desperately need. I think it's more of a necessity from the Raptors perspective than it is a, hey, this is your perfect role, this is what we want you in. Because I agree, I don't think the pull-up shooting is ever going to get to a point where it's tangible. I think he's more of a catch and shoot player, if anything. But then my question back to you is, what would you look at as Marcus Smart and obviously he's not, hey, if he turns into Marcus Smart, big win for the Toronto Raptors. But
big loss for people who don't want more Marcus Smarts out there.
Yeah,
but
hate Marcus.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true. Yeah, the king of the North. How do you feel about what position would you put Marcus Smart in? Would you call him a point guard? Would you call him a shooting guard? Would you call him a wing? I don't know, but where would you put him in?
I'd say he's more of a 2-3, honestly, especially now on that Memphis team. Maybe you could argue he was a little more point guard on Boston, but I think we saw that there are limits to Marcus Smart running point for you, and I think it's kind of a similar thing with Mitchell. I just, look, cleaning the glass, in fairness, to cut into my own argument here, last year had him down as a point guard for 73% of his minutes, 27% as a point guard. Love cleaning the glass, love Ben Falk. I think that's just kind of wrong in spirit, because to me, and maybe my definition is not the only definition, but my definition of point guard is guy who runs your offense, guy who gets you into your stuff, guy who sets the table. And I just don't think he really did that last year on the Kings most of the time, unless he was unless he was out there without one of Malik Monk or De'Aaron Fox. Most of the time he was playing with one of those guys, and it worked pretty well because those guys are actually creative passers and dribblers and initiators, right? Some lineup data for you. The lineup where Mitchell spent the most time without being tethered to one of those two guys was Davion Mitchell, Kevin Huerter, Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes, Domantas Sabonis. That lineup was a minus 16 points per 100 possessions. They got absolutely bludgeoned.
Hey, that's why they brought in Keon Ellis. That's
exactly an actual point guard. So the Mitchell lineups. So basically, when he was out there as the listed point guard, those lineups were a minus 8.1 per 100. When he was out there as a listed shooting guard, they were a plus 8.3 per 100. So maybe there's this vision of him as a point guard, but he's not a good point guard. And when he does point guard things, his teams get run off the floor. Just digging a little bit further into some numbers here as well. Mitchell lineups, no Monk, no Fox, minus 20.2 per 100% overall. Second percentile among all lineups per clean the glass. Not so good. As far as his shot diet, 1.7 catch and shoot 3 attempts per game to 0.5 pull-up attempts. 49% of all of his shots were 3-point attempts. So you're looking at a lot of just standing around waiting for catch and shoots. 21% of his possessions came as a pick and roll ball handler. 42% of his possessions came on spot ups and just 5% in isolations. His sort of play type chart and all of it kind of belies the listed as a point guard thing, because he didn't really play as the point guard when he was out there with one of the actual lead guard guys on that Kings team. I rest my case. He's not a point guard. Do you want to? To try to knock me down from one whole shooting guard being added to the tally here.
I will say that he is not a point guard, but not a shooting guard either. I don't know what he is. I don't think
he might not be up that long for the league.
An NBA player. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens, because you're lower on him. I think there's a chance, because again, this is a good example in terms of water being found in the desert, right? Because when the Raptors got Gary Trent Jr., it was like, oh my God, shooting. The concept of it, the ability to shoot the basketball. I can't believe you're here. People started calling him Gary Beal. Okay. Obviously, that has turned very, very quickly. We'll see what happens with Gary Trent Jr., who is, by the way, a shooting guard.
He is a shooting guard. Bring him back. He fits the team build.
Yeah, exactly. But I think in a similar way to Jakob Poeltl, or even when they brought in Freddie Gillespie, it was like, man, this is a big person. This is a person and we need a center. And so I think from that perspective, the Raptors are so deprived at the point guard spot, because we just talked about it. Quickly isn't a point guard technically. Scottie isn't a point guard technically. There is no point guard on the Toronto Raptors. There's a bunch of playmakers. There isn't this table setter, hey, let's get into our action type of guard. And so that's where I think Davion Mitchell if you had to kind of squint, would have to fit that application, would have to fit that description, and therefore point guard. So,
all right.
yeah.
We'll give him 0.75 of a point guard. I'm putting my foot down. We're up to
All right.
2.6 point guards on there. Sorry, shooting guards. He's 0.75 of a shooting guard. My bad. Excuse me.
Okay. All right.
Didn't want to get the non-point guard people too disappointed there. Okay. Let's move on to the next guy. Bruce Brown. Is he a shooting guard?
He is whatever you want him to be, but I don't know, man.
Except a meaningful player coming back in return.
Look, in Brooklyn, he was a 4. In Denver, he was a 1/2 off of the bench, and sometimes a 3. In Toronto, I'm not sure what he was for the last 30 games of the season. I don't think he even knew what he was through the last 30 games of the season. So if I had to answer that question, I think, if the season started tomorrow, is he the starting shooting guard of this team? Is that
be.
That's weird to me.
That's weird.
Strange. I don't see the vision there. You'll have to walk me through that one.
No, there's no vision. It's bad. It would be terrible.
I would give him the least amount of shooting guard of all the players that we've mentioned so far that are in contention for shooting guard status. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think he's probably like 0.5 shooting guard, right? Like, I think he does some big things. He does some guard things. He does some wing things. He's also 6'4" or whatever he is, which
he
is
just kind of
shooting guard size. Yeah. We'll go 0.5 shooting guard, and all of a sudden, it is now 3.1 shooting guards to just 3 non-shooting guards on this team. All right, let's go to the next one here quickly. It's not Emmanuel Quickly. It's Ochai Agbaji. Can't really shoot. Had some trouble guarding, but he's definitely a shooting guard, right?
Yeah. So it's funny. Josh Green just got traded for 2 second-round picks, and I look at Josh Green, and I think he is Ochai Agbaji if Ochai Agbaji knew how to shoot and dribble the basketball. And so I'm very shocked that the Raptors didn't even attempt to get on that. Maybe they did, who knows? But at the same time, Ochai just has a lot of work that he has to do. He is a shooting guard, in my opinion, or a 3. You can maybe lean into him being a 3.
They're going to ask him to be a 3 this year, which might be trouble.
Which will be definitely trouble. He's 6'4", right? 6'4", 6'5", I think it was. It was interesting to see him kind of being used as a screener and roller last year a little bit, which was like, okay, maybe he has that like Bruce Brown to him where he can catch the ball inside the paint and make a decision with it. But that being said, he's a shooting guard who lacks a lot of the shooting guard skills, sadly. Yeah,
we're up to 4.1 shooting guards to 3 non-shooting guards. The numbers are getting a little tilted here. Yeah. All right. Then we go next to Chris Boucher. Look, if this were 2021-22, I'd say, he's a shooting guard. He plays the 2 basically in those bizarro lineups they would throw out there. Probably not so much anymore, right?
No, I would say no. Yeah.
Score 1 for non-shooting guard. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side. We will round it out with the next whole bunch of guys and whether or not they are shooting guards. It's 4.1 to 4 for shooting guards to non-shooting guards. The suspense is killing me. Also, Jonathan Mogbo is coming up. We're going to do a little detour and talk about how rad he is coming up in just 1 second. All right, rounding things out here with Es Baraheni from all over the place. CEBL, Forbes, Raptors Republic, etc. He's taking over the world, and we love to see it. All right, let's get it to it next
Thank
here.
You kindly. Thank you. I appreciate
that is a good hat. Did you get that from Bruce Brown?
Yeah. Hey, we're talking about Bruce. Why not? All right, let's do it.
How can people dislike Bruce Brown? Is my thing. He wears cowboy hats and cowboy boots and seems
he's a cool dude. He absolutely is a cool dude. Yeah, no question.
All right, let's go next to Jakob Poeltl, the recent draft pick of your Toronto Raptors in the first round. Outside of Grady Dick, maybe the shooting guard on this team.
I think he's more than Grady Dick, a shooting guard. Like especially given the size, I think for sure. Shooting guard.
Perfect. All right. Jakob Poeltl, that one's easy. All right. Now it's time for a little Moboganda. Jonathan Mogbo, he is not a shooting guard. He notably did not take a 3 in his entire college career. So I think we can put him comfortably in the not a shooting guard bucket on this team. That said, Jonathan Mogbo brings some
Sick.
very, very exciting things to the table that I'm having a hard time reining myself in of the excitement on. It's pretty exciting times. You a couple days ago, on the Raptors Republic draft and offseason reaction episode with Samson and Lewis and Trey, threw a little take out there. I don't want to steal your thunder, so deliver the take once again for all to hear on this platform.
It was spicy. Yeah, I will say, admittedly, it was a spicy take. But
before you get into it, I have to say, when you said it, I was on my bike. I literally pumped my fist while riding my bike listening to this.
Maybe it's just me and watching highlights and watching the plays and just being like enamored with a guy who has the ball handling skills of what seemingly looks like a guard, but can dunk the ball whenever he wants to. Incredible athlete. Great wingspan, all that type of stuff. I see star potential. I see all-star potential. I see a guy who could potentially eventually become like the second best player on the team next to Scottie Barnes. That was the spicy take I had, that this was potentially going to be a guy who could get to that point. Can you imagine, by the way, as a sort of like storyline thing, if it's Scottie and his best friend leading the Raptors to glory? How incredible would that be?
Up against the Villanova Knicks, just friendship versus friendship? Hell yeah. I'm totally
in. Incredible. Yeah. And then you have the former Knicks on there too, just scorned from not being involved in the Villanova Knicks stuff. I don't know. Would be very fun. I just think there is a lot of potential wrapped in what Mogbo can do, and it's the ability, and it kind of leans into the traits of what the Raptors like to do, right? He could be excellent off of the ball as a cutter and a mover, kind of floating into space, being in that dunker spot. He's excellent off of 2 feet and dunking off of 2 feet, so he can kind of like pogo stick his way up, if he needs to. And I just love his ability in transition. That should feed well next to Scottie and RJ. I think the playmaking fits right into what the Raptors want to do in terms of the high post stuff that they run with their bigs, with Jakob and Kelly. And also being mentored by those two guys should help him improve as a screener, as a short roll guy, as a playmaker, all that type of stuff. I just think there is so much potential in what Mogbo can do. Obviously, the scoring and the shooting will be a big part of it. But if he can what I see is like Aaron Gordon with maybe some all-star potential to it. And that would be a great outcome for the Toronto Raptors at 31 for sure.
You're speaking my language here, dude. The shooting obviously is a thing that could be a limiting factor down the line, but he does so many other things really well. He moves so well. He's freaking huge. He's like,
I didn't even say the defensive side of things. I didn't even mention any of that, but yeah.
I think on defense, he's going to be a ton of fun. And frankly, I think there's a very real chance. This is kind of my like spicy take. Maybe this isn't even that spicy. I think he is like comfortably the most productive, value-giving rookie the Raptors have this year. I think Jakob Poeltl is going to be buried behind the 4,000 shooting guards we're talking about today. And I think Jonathan Mogbo is going to be sitting there like, there's no wings on this team. Maybe I can slide in some minutes at the 3. I'm probably going to play backup 5 behind Jakob Poeltl at this point. I'm actually super interested in Mogbo Olynyk lineups and
big time
Scottie out there, maybe some Grady, some Quickly. Like I think put a ton of shooting around Mogbo and let him go to work. I think the short roll stuff that you mentioned, that's going to be, I think, a plus skill for him. I am really, really digging the idea of Mogbo, especially as they've added more shooting. Credit to them. Like, yes, that's required them to totally forego the traditional norms of roster building, but
they've like overcompensated. They realized they're like, oh my God, we never had shooting. Let's get every shooter in the world. And
what if just be normal once? Like, we got to get every 6'9" guy who can't shoot, and now we must get every shooting guard. Just like, how about a little bit of everything, huh? Variety's the spice of life, Masai and Bobby.
My mom is like this, where like if you walk into the kitchen and eat like a peach and you'd be like, man, this is such a great peach. You'll walk in the next day with 30 peaches on there. And you're like, dude, I didn't ask for 30 peaches.
This is an unsustainable amount of peaches.
I just asked for the one
different
peach.
Skills.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, come on. I'm not going to have 30 peaches. What am I going to do with 30 peaches?
Where are the bananas at? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
No. Super in on Mogbo. And I think he's kind of got to play from the jump at this point. And at 22 years old, I mean, why not? I think let's see what he can do as a rookie, and maybe bring the other guys along a little bit slower. But yeah, this has been your Jonathan Mogbo minute. There'll be many of those going forward.
Can I just say one thing?
My wagon to him and his ascent. Yeah.
I think I'm interested to see what the contract is for Mogbo, because they now have that second round exception thing with the new CBA, so they can sign him to a multi-year deal if they choose to. They could do a 4-year deal instead of a 2-year deal. That's usually the way that goes for 2 ways. But he seems like he's going to be a guaranteed. Shed, which is another shooting guard, point guard guy that we sort of need to talk about.
Don't get ahead in the rundown, my friend.
I'm sorry. But yeah, love Mogbo. Very excited to see what he does as a rookie. I'm amped up because people have said like Precious, but with better decision-making skills. And like, that's really all I've ever asked of from Precious Achiuwa. People have said Kenneth Faried, and I think that's interesting. That's cool. I would be down for that. Some people
have
even
low
said,
on Mogbo, baby.
Yeah. Some people have said Pascal, like rookie Pascal is what they sort of see. And obviously Pascal had this incredible development as a scorer and creator, which is like one of the best development stories ever. But if Mogbo can kind of capitalize on the skills that Pascal had as a rookie and just keep building on them, man, that's exciting.
22, kind of a small college.
Just
saying. I think my like official take on Mogbo is I do think that within 4 years he is considered part of the core of the team. Whether
I agree.
He is like, the best player, second best player, whether it's Mogbo and shooters. That's just what they roll with. I think he's going to work himself into the plans here. Super duper high. Maybe the highest I've ever been on a Toronto Raptors second round pick, I think.
Honestly.
Jamal Shed, you mentioned him, the other rookie coming in. He is, I think, pretty comfortably a point guard. And if I had my druthers, just let him be the backup. He's an adult. He led a really, really good college team while being a maniac defender, a very, very, very high level passer. The shooting, maybe that gets a little bit easier when he's not the be all end all of teams' defensive schemes. Where are you at with Jamal Shed? Is he a shooting guard, to get back to the theme of the podcast?
This is so funny because we're on opposite sides of this. I think
really
he is 100% a shooting guard. So the reason I say that is because
it fits the agenda. If you want to call him a shooting guard, I'm in. Let's go.
I was reading some stuff on Shed, and apparently the shooting numbers, he only shot 29% from 3 throughout college, but his catch and shoot numbers were much, much better. Right. And so, if he ends up becoming more of a catch and shoot guy, 35% on catch and shoots, maybe he still stays at 30% on pull-ups. You're looking at like a 33% three-point shooter, which is enough to keep him on the floor for his defense and his playmaking. I agree that he has point guard skills, especially the playmaking pop, no question. But the catch and shoot stuff makes me lean towards shooting guard. So can we do 0.5 or 0.75? 0.25,
let's do
whatever.
0.75. Let's do it. 0.775
right.
shooting guard. I'm in. We're up to 5.85 shooting guards to 5 non-shooting guards on this team. The math is definitely mathing. And we're going to end up with the Raptors actually having like 13 players on the roster instead of 15. But that's fine.
Forgot Garrett Temple. And
No.
Oh, yeah.
Garrett Temple is next. Garrett Temple's a shooting guard, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Obviously.
Yeah. Big time.
Shooting guard / coach. That's his description. Yeah, he's a shooting guard. 2 more guys here. Sasha Vezenkov has the skill set of a shooting guard, likes to bomb him away. Maybe they get weird with big lineups and throw him at the 2. Probably not happening. He's not a shooting guard, right?
I'll give him 0.1 shooting guard. Can we give him 0.1? Yeah.
6.95 shooting guards. Let's go. Yes, I'm in on that. I think that is very fair. And then lastly, Javon Freeman Liberty, non-guaranteed deal. But come on, man. I know there's like a hope that, maybe he's got the playmaking juice to be kind of a combo guard. The man has the Hooper's spirit. He is a shooting guard through and through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He gets buckets in the G League, and the G League is sort of made for shooting guards. So yes, I will say shooting guard.
Excellent. So the final tally on your 2024-25 Toronto Raptors roster, subject to change, is 7.95 shooting guards to 5 non-shooting guards. Roster balance, baby. Feel the rush.
It used to be they had 17 power forwards, and now they just kind of dropped it down, and now it's 10 shooting guards. It's funny. That's funny how it works.
Would be really depressing if I hadn't already kind of resigned myself to this coming season being not very fun. There will be fun stuff. They'll get in the lab.
I think it
5
will
shooting guard lineups. It's the future, baby.
Yeah, I think it will be more fun than last year, and last year was terrible. So
fair. Yeah. Not having, enormous uncertainty about the core players of the team, I think going to go a long way to not sapping the vibes by December. But I guess let me ask you to round out here. We've established the roster, not exactly balanced.
Yeah.
Do you still expect something to happen here? It feels like this roster is begging for a trade. I'm looking over at a couple of different teams. Our pal Ben Chapman noted in the Locked On Raptors Discord today, there's like a deal that makes sense with Bruce Brown for Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis. I don't know. Like Pat Connaughton, maybe a little washed. I've always been a Bobby Portis guy, so I'd totally fine getting that psycho on the team. There's like DeAndre Hunter and Yeka Okongwu. Like, is there something there? And then the Nets come to mind with Cam Johnson and Day'Ron Sharpe. Is there something here? Would you attach draft capital to grease the wheels of a roster balancing trade at this point? I think I honestly would, just to give the roster like the proper context in which everyone can properly develop and doing the things that they think we envision for them long term. But I can see the argument for not doing that and just going into the season with the oops all shooting guards roster. I don't know, where are you at with the sort of roster imbalance, and if something is going to happen to shake that up?
The only pick capital I would give up is a 2025 lottery protected pick, which is pretty much guaranteed to not convert. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean a fake first.
The fake,
I'm fine attaching that Pacers pick too. Honestly, I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean they're probably going to be good. I agree. Some of the names that you mentioned are sort of the ones that you think would pop out there. I have thought of a sign-in trade situation: Bruce Brown, Caleb Martin. How do you feel about that? Like
I don't hate that.
Swap, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think you don't want to be paying Caleb Martin, Bruce Brown money, probably.
Yeah. Maybe you do the same thing that they did with Bruce Brown, and that 1 year is $23 million, and the second year is a team option type of thing where he can kind of figure out what he wants. I don't know. That's just something that I thought of last night. I agree with a lot of the names that you mentioned. Wiggins, also an interesting one if the Warriors are really trying to shed salary, but I don't know.
I don't know about the Wiggins one, man. I feel like this is a dream that Raptors fans have been holding on to since 2014, and it's okay to let it go.
But those are so like you mentioned Cam, you mentioned DeAndre Hunter.
Oh, it's all unsexy. Martin. Yeah,
it's all but it's all kind of the same position, which is like get a 3, get a
backup big.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Those are the two areas where it's like this team absolutely needs some roster balance. And you're right. It does feel like there's something in the works because it feels, that whole thing where it's like, it's too quiet, it's quiet. It's too quiet. It feels like that. It feels like there's something in the works because we haven't heard anything about Gary. There's no real clear-cut clarity on Sasha Vezenkov, and the whole buyout situation with him in Europe. I'm curious to see what happens over the next couple of weeks with this team because it feels like there's going to be a trade.
Yeah, you would think that, but I also thought the roster was begging for some kind of move last summer when they were going into the season with Dennis Schroeder as their only point guard.
Yeah,
and that never happened. And so I think I think it's fair to lean skepticism on like another move coming, but the roster as it stands is so out of whack.
Yeah,
it feels like something's got to give. If not, I don't know, man. I think we can really declare the handling of the Bruce Brown thing a pretty poor misstep, and maybe the last run of missteps that they're hopefully trying to turn the page from this summer. Take me back to the second round of the draft where it felt like the old Raptors were back, man.
Yeah, they were cooking. They were like, we're doing this. That was their free agency, though. They're like, hey,
it was the best day of the summer. I think it's going to go down as that.
I'm interested to see what happens because you're right. I think roster balance is also a really important part of development because you get guys in the right spots. And I've seen people say like, hey, the Raptors shouldn't get a backup center because they're tanking. And it's like, well, sure, but they also want to improve their players. And so in order to do that, they need to have a guy in the back, whoever it is, really. I was thinking Goga Bitadze, but I guess that didn't happen. Someone in the back to kind of just man and anchor everything defensively so that Jakob Poeltl, who needs to improve on the defensive end, Grady Dick, who needs to improve on the defensive end, even RJ and IQ, like they can have their screw ups without, bleeding points and being a -30 on the night type of thing. You know what I mean? So very important.
The Toronto Raptors 4-28 without Jakob Poeltl last season.
Yeah.
He's important. If he goes down, I mean, obviously Jonathan Mogbo will step in admirably and be the really good backup center this team needs. But it'd be nice to have another option too, because he's got to also play the wing. Because again, no wings on this team.
No wings. Yeah.
With that, we will leave it there. This was an absolute blast. Thank you for indulging me in this stupid little exercise.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Nothing going on right now. Tap into the CEBL, tap into CEBL Weekly if you guys are interested to watch Canadian Elite Basketball League. It's always dope. Very, very fun. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, CEBL. We'll be on a game together.
Yes, we will.
July 27th in Niagara. Tune in for that. This tandem links back up. It's going to be great. I'm doing CBL this Thursday as well. If you want to watch Niagara take on, I should know who they're playing. I do know who they're playing. It's not coming to my mind right now.
Oh, no.
Really bad at my job, apparently. I know who they're playing. My brain's not working. We'll leave it there. Thanks so much for hanging out. And we will talk to you again on Wednesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors as S goes and sends a text to our bosses saying Sean's unfit for his position. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, join the Discord, of course. Support S's work, support mine. And we will talk to you again on Wednesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.
Damn it.